Welcome everybody to our first AI 3.0 Ecosystem Panel. The subject is fair, private deAI data access, and we're really happy to welcome Masa, PublicAI, and ZkAGI. Our discussion today is going to focus around the evolving AI landscape, which we're referring to as AI 3.0, with a particular emphasis on fair access to training data, data ownership, and privacy. So together with Autonomous, these organizations that we've brought on stage are addressing critical challenges right now in AI development, like decentralized data validation, multimodal data integration, and secure AI training. So by the end of today's session, anybody listening is going to be gaining insight into the synergies between these projects and how their collaborations are advancing the future of AI. But before we begin, I wanted to briefly set the stage for talking about how we're thinking about the evolution of AI. So we've moved through several significant phases over the last few decades. What we're viewing as like three distinct phases. We can kind of think of AI 1.0 as being like original AI, like characterized by centralized machine learning, large rule-based systems that were trained using data sets processed through cloud computing. AI 2.0, you can kind of think of as being the rise of Gen AI, which has happened relatively recently with large language models, offering more sophisticated capabilities, but still remaining in control by those centralized entities. And these advancements introduced interactive AI experiences, but they're still limited in control and transparency for users and people that are using them in general. So now, as we're approaching the third iteration of this, it's kind of a commingling of AI and Web3, the best of both worlds, where we're seeing this emergence in the deAI landscape of decentralized, human-centric AI ecosystems. So AI 3.0, in our view, is all about open collaboration, decentralization, and privacy, something that everybody feels very strongly about in the Web3 space, where individuals can train, deploy, and own their AI models, supported by this new blockchain technology, which is why we've brought these people on stage, these amazing projects that we're seeing that are really making waves in the space. So this next phase is fundamentally different. It empowers users with data ownership, transparency, and the ability to build AI applications in a decentralized environment. With that said, I'm pleased to introduce Todd as our CEO. Todd, if you want, go ahead and say a few words about yourself, and then we can get started.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Todd. I'm the CEO here at Autonomous. Happy to be here. As Chris mentioned, we are bringing out our AI 3.0 offering, which is really centered around this concept of human-centric AI, empowering individuals with control and ownership of their data. We've been through several iterations of our incentivized testnet, garnering over 30,000 individual node runners in the last 2 years. Most recently, it ended 2 weeks ago, was our Gemini 3 series, where we had almost 10,000 farmers. So, this is 10,000 people actually downloading the software, running it, contributing storage to the network. We had about 150 petabytes, and we are going to be going live in the next couple of weeks. So it's really exciting times. We're very happy to be here, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks so much, Todd. So I think we'll start with the first question, and I think I'll bring it to Shiva at PublicAI. To start, Shiva, and we'll go around the room. First, Shiva, then Matt, and then Aten. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'd love to hear your perspective on what this notion of AI 3.0 means to you, just decentralized AI, deAI in general, and how your organization is contributing to development of this next generation of this whole AI ecosystem. So we'll start with you, Shiva.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Chris. And once again, thank you so much for having me on this panel. It's absolutely lovely to be connected. I mean, it's always fun and exciting to know about this great projects which are in the ecosystem, and considering it's a small space right now, it's still a niche. So it's lovely working to be being a part of this ecosystem right now and kind of accelerating the initial building blocks of what we are referring to as 3.0 right now, which is pretty interesting and quite compelling to begin with. So my name is Shiva. I am the head of business development at PublicAI. In a nutshell, what we are a train to earn ecosystem and a platform where we are in the intersection of both Web3 and AI, and trying to be kind of the Web3 of scale AI, where we are data labeling in terms of our business and how we're giving back to the entire community just by having access to Web3 as an ecosystem and kind of tapping into that. So the whole idea is that how can anyone and everyone around the world have access to coming in and training these LLMs and kind of being rewarded in the process. So that's at the ethos of what we do. Would love to deep dive and talk further about what you're building into the process, but it's really exciting times right now in the market itself as well. But we've just like kind of hit about 550K users on the platform. So as we scale, there are new challenges which come across, but it's always exciting to have great teams running in the background and trying to help us out with all of that. So a huge shout out to all the devs in the back working and making sure everything's running smooth.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shiva. I'll turn it over to Matt. Matt, I'd love to hear a similar introduction. Yeah, go for it.
Thanks, Chris, and great to be here. Great to be with you, Shiva, Aten, and Todd as well. We're at Masa. We are looking to solve the kind of data collection component of this whole decentralized AI movement. And for us, when you step back, we think one of the best parts and one of the worst parts about AI is the data that it has access to, right? Without all the data, it can have a lot of biases, and there's just a lot of challenges that it can have as it's limited. And so we've focused on what are sources of data that are important in our world. Is there access to them today? And if not, how can we create that? And so we've started focusing on kind of the Web 2 gatekept platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, Telegram, Discord as well. But our network enables individuals to go out, create whatever query parameters they're interested in, and then go scrape that data. So it can be injected into agents or models or whatever you're building. And, what's core to our ethos is fair AI, as we've been saying, which is really just anyone having access to the data that they need to build whatever application that they dream of. So we're just continuing to work with builders, hear about problems, and ultimately looking to give them the ability to collect that information. And we've stepped back and said the best way to do that is a decentralized network. And so you can operate a node in our ecosystem and earn rewards. We have BitTensor Subnet 42. That's where all of the activity takes place. You can earn tons of emissions and things like that, as well as we just launched our incentivized testnet, which enables you to just hit it like an API traditional Web 2 experience. But again, we're really focused on just trying to put any and all data in the hands of the builders. We think data should be free. It should be accessible, especially in a world where most of these platforms got it from us and now want to charge us for it, or gatekeep it, or use it to sell to us, or use it to train models on their own that they can monetize. And we think that should be in the hands of the people. So great to be here, psyched to talk today, and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I think we all agree with everything you said. So you didn't say anything that I was like, oh my God. Last but certainly not least, Aten, I'd love to hear an intro from you and how you're seeing the world right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris and Autonomous, for having me here, and lovely to join PublicAI and Masa as well. I think one of the core ethos for us from day one has been let's not compete with anybody, but let's complete, and let's solve the problems that we have to solve. And that's what makes AI 3.0 so special, right? Because it merges a powerful technology like AI, and it also converges that with Web 3.0 or decentralization, right? So this is very powerful because AI for any society is like a god, right? It can do things, it can do supernatural things, right? And the way we're thinking of AI and what we're building at ZkAGI is for every user to experience a superhuman version of their own mind. Because just like the human mind, is processing its thoughts in complete privacy, right? With ZkAGI, you can keep your data completely private, and you can actually tap very powerful AI models like LLMs that have 105 billion parameters or whatever. There's different AI models out there, and all these powerful AI models can run on this infrastructure. They're open source models, but as soon as they're plugged into this infrastructure, they preserve the privacy of the data that's flowing through them, whether it's at rest, whether it's in use, or even if it's being stored. So I think one of the core, I think, partnerships with Autonomous is around the storage of the AI models. And of course, also happy to speak with PublicAI and Masa on some potential synergies, because there's always some good scopes for synergies. But essentially what we're doing is letting you experience like AI, but like having it wrap around in a structure very similar to a mind. This intelligence is constrained within a mind kind of paradigm. So, it's all private.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And again, I agree. I can't disagree with any of that. We had posed some questions to you guys, and I think how we'll kind of go about this is we'll talk about one of the questions, pose it to one of you, and then open the floor to talk about that more in depth. And so the first thing that's been on everyone's mind, especially last week in Salt Lake City for Permissionless 3, is involving training and the performance of AI agents. We know that Agentics is blowing up. Everyone's talking about it. There's plenty of new platforms that are kind of like Perplexity for agents, or like being able to monetize agents and being able to use them and make money off of that. And what the pattern that we're seeing is making money off of your data and finding a way to bring data ownership back to people. So I want to turn it to Matt. And we can keep this as open-ended as we want, but Matt, the upcoming integration with Autonomous as our network is going to allow developers to access multimodal data streams from like text to video across various platforms. So could you maybe like talk a little bit about how does this integration, how might this enhance training and performance of agents having this multimodal data available, and what are developers going to stand to gain from accessing some of these diverse data sets?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And it's a great question and something we're working hard on. I think we all know in the AI space, just in general, text has been the easiest starting place. Getting into some of the more advanced concepts, video, images, etc. And video, can be synthesized down to text at the end of the day. But images and things like that are really important in just gathering more data, having a broader viewpoint, and being able to really bring various viewpoints, into your model. And so obviously we've started with text, we've started with platforms like Twitter and Reddit and things like that are, very simple. And we've actually found a lot of fit with customers who say, hey, like, we're looking to expand beyond that. Can you help us synthesize podcasts? Can we go to YouTube and collect, more information? Instagram, there's tons of value there. And so really, like, competitors in this space, they can compete on the model front, but a lot of them are reusing things that are either open source or private label models like ChatGPT, et cetera. And so the differentiator for you as a business and a builder becomes the data you have access to, the context you can apply it to, and ultimately like how fast you can learn and iterate. And so for us, as we move from text into other varieties of data, it's really what our builders need first and foremost, and how can we rapidly put that in their hands to be consumed and ultimately deliver customer value. And just speaking to the last point with Autonomous, we are decentralizing the ability to scrape the data. But just like scraping data can be restricted, but from traditional Web 2 platforms, storing data can also be restricted in that manner, right? And so I think where we look at a world where AI continues to be more open and accessible, the only way to do that is to obviously decentralize the whole stack. And there's really great synergies with collecting the data and then ultimately storing it. And so we're really excited about that. We're excited to continue to, again, just listen to builders and continue to iterate. So that's my high level. Obviously, we should open it up to everybody else.
Let's open it up. Does anything that Matt said spark any ideas? Feel free to come off mic and comment, guys.
I can
Sure, I
go
would love
first.
to.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Chairman.
go for it. Oh, sure. Thank you so much. So I would just like to chime in on the same on what Matt said. So in terms of just like how the initial structure of our journey has been pretty similar, where we have kind of created programs and applications which were very user centric. So while we build onto these things, one of the most important aspects is that how can we have user experience and UI at the center of everything that we're doing. I think that has been kind of a cornerstone in what we try to build. And as we scale, because the sheer number of users that we onboard onto our platform, it kind of becomes very imperative to have, as Matt said, like, what is the customer product fit. Like you have to understand exactly what the developers need, the kind of tools that they would require to build, and the kind of seamless applications that they can use and interact with just to make their work easier. So that's how we look at things and products and applications at Public AI. So we came off with a product called the Arena, so which is basically a bot that we have built on Telegram. So the whole idea is that how can we tap into the whole Telegram ecosystem and kind of leverage all the users who are already onto the platform and let them know that, hey, you're already using multiple applications. You are kind of, you know what Web3 is about. You have a wallet, and all you need to do is come in and kind of interact with that application, perform some tasks, and you can be rewarded in crypto. So the underlying tone of the entire conversation today also kind of reflects on how data ownership, integrity, and sovereignty should like kind of be the pillars of what we're trying to build onto as a community, and everyone who is involved with any kind of project in whatever capacity. So that's what we look at as one of the main visions that we have behind the team, and as well as the products that we do.
Awesome. Turning it to you, Todd, since you also had your hand up, curious what you think.
Yeah, specifically on the topic of training, one of the things that I think really helps differentiate blockchain and its application there is this whole idea of trust. It's going to be key in these AI applications for trust in these large-scale data processing and public verification, to provide proof of how these models are being trained. Are they being trained as intended? Are they being trained without manipulation? And is that data being made available and accessible to the people who are using it? So in our case in particular, with thousands of nodes and this vast amount of data that we're able to store, anyone can publicly verify the correctness of the network. You don't need to have trust in any kind of a central authority. It's all on chain. So, one of the big ads that we have there is this, the concept of data permanence as well. It's going to be there for eternity. It's going to be replicated, and it's out there for the public consumption, so that there's actually full disclosure and transparency as to where the training data is coming from.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I agree. You really can't have trust and data ownership feel like peanut butter and jelly. So that kind of leads us to our next topic, which we're kind of already dovetailing into anyway. It's this idea around data ownership and compensation. So I'm really curious, again, Public AI, for your take on this. Like, how does this idea of data ownership and compensation influence this broader vision that we're seeing in the Web3 space? And as we see AI merge with Web3, we're calling it AI 3.0. Like, what challenges and opportunities does this create for decentralization across ecosystems? Let's talk about data ownership and fair AI. I'm curious for some of your thoughts.
Thanks for the question, Chris. I think when I was just earlier on a panel today, and we kind of spoke something very similar to what it is all about when we are focusing on AI 3.0. What are the building blocks and what are the main pillars that we have once we're trying to like solve for these things? So I think anyone who has transited from a Web3 space, such as myself, and kind of now involved with an intersection of working alongside projects which are involved in AI or in whatever capacity, it's you have to be cognizant of the fact that there are certain things which fuel this industry, starting from data to begin with, obviously, which is the fuel of the entire ecosystem here, followed by the computational power which is required. So it's all the hardware and all the GPUs, and towards the end of the day, the most important thing, which is kind of intangible in that segment, is the ownership, which is who actually owns all this fuel, which we call data right now. So when we talk about what the entire Web3 segment transits into, and how a lot of the projects which were into Web3 and now intersected with AI, now what we're looking at is how can we kind of give back to the communities in the way that there's fair reward for every kind of data which has been sent by any person. So because of centralized organizations, which are kind of the giants and the mammoths in the space, have been leveraging in the past, and there was, to be very honest, and how I look at it is also because of lack of knowledge in the past, which was leveraged by these big giants when they came in and kind of extrapolated large amounts of data from people without them knowing about it, and then towards the end of it monetized it, and there was no win-win situation at all. It was kind of one-sided of how you look at things. But how what we are trying to build as well, like as a project, we are trying to look at how we can give the opportunity to everyone who has access to uh, basically just the internet and can kind of come in and start training these large language models and get rewarded into the process. So every data which is being sent out has some kind of a reward structure associated to it, as long as someone is willing to perform a task, kind of give back training modules, uh, their positive or negative reinforcements in a way. And how our proprietary BFT mechanisms also work. They help like a large mass of people come in and help validate all of this data so that it can be fine tuned. So it's an entire ecosystem that we're trying to build. It starts from getting the data, extrapolating it, to fine tuning it, and towards the end of it, the end idea is how can everyone who's been a part of the process be rewarded very, very fairly for the same. So to your question, we just try to leverage the ethos of blockchain itself, and how reward distribution mechanisms in the past have worked very well. So just trying to replicate the same onto AI, and see how we can make the most out of it.
Of course, yeah. I'd love to hear from everybody else as well. I think the one thing that I wanted to bring up was I remember years ago I had read this book by Jaron Lanier called "Who Owns the Future" from 2013, and he kind of postulated like we really want an information economy that works for everybody, and that's really where we're moving. You know, a 10, Matt. Do any of these things that come up? Any thoughts?
I'm
I,
happy
I
to jump
like
in.
this.
I'll
Oh,
tell you.
sorry, yeah, Matt, go ahead. I
I've
think
already
this
talked
is
plenty. You go.
No,
Atan, you
I
can go
think
ahead.
it's way more relevant for Masa to be answering this. Like, I'll go next. I just had to share a thought, but you can go ahead.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Happy to jump in here. Yeah. I think like data ownership is like core to who we have been at Masa for a while. Actually, our first iteration of our company was really focused on user permissions data and individuals being able to share various data points and monetize that. And we've obviously evolved a little bit to a different data collection strategy. And one of the things we've learned is like it's a huge paradigm shift for everyday people to think about their data as a resource and as valuable. Like we all have been trained over the last 10, 15 years to go on Twitter and write a post or go on Instagram and share a photo or do all this stuff on the internet. And we really haven't realized like how much information is out there on us and how valuable that information is. And so we see through deals like Reddit selling their data and Polymarket partnering with Perplexity and all of these other huge kind of companies like starting to get into this, that our individual data is very valuable, and it's also really important to who we are and the experiences that we have on the internet. And so as we've listened to our customers and evolved into this data collection tool for them, what we have seen and learned is that individuals can contribute kind of their login and credentials and their viewpoint. And so I'll step back and give an example. On Twitter, we all have our feed, right? And our feed is generally like, for me, I spend more time on like the For You feed these days than the one that I've curated, which is the algo driven, right? And everyone's algo is unique to who they are and what they capture. And so with our processes, you can go have 50,000 node operators around the world scraping from their viewpoint, but then they form consensus around the output. And so it's a lot of different eyes into like one kind of standardized thought. And I think for all of us in this space, the important thing is like just learning how this data is valuable and ultimately how we can reward end users. I think that's really like the tricky part, is kind of monetizing it. And today we're doing that through tokenized systems. All of us are generally. But yeah, it's like the most important thing for me is like I try and educate all my normie friends all the time. Like, look, everything you do on the internet, someone is making money off of, and there are tons of opportunities for you to do so. And I think the only way to do it is with blockchain. And I think the only future we have is a future where you are going to have blockchain to protect you against AI and ultimately help you monetize that, control it, et cetera. We see things like WorldCoin and Proof of Humanity, but there's just so much that makes us unique, and we've just got to continue to educate the masses that like your data is very important. Your privacy is supremely important in a future state, and most importantly, like if you want to share that information, you should get rewarded for that. So that's kind of our viewpoint here at Masa, and we're just iterating as fast as we can to put that in the hands of everyone.
Awesome. Aten, love to hear from you. And then Todd, if you have any final thoughts before we move on. Yeah, Aten, curious what you think.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I'm a big cypherpunk, of course, like leading ZkAGI. One of the core things for me, like one of the core problems we were trying to do is, like, when you go to a hospital, there's so much like sensitive data that, is getting stored in their databases. And this is something you can actually monetize patients for, because it's going to help medical research, and it can probably bring down the amount they have to pay for their treatments and ongoing insurances and stuff like that. So our thought process has been like, hey, like monetize people for their data, but process it in a way that you don't sacrifice the privacy of the user, so that it cannot be reverse engineered. There's not going to be an identity theft and things like that. There's so many bad things that can happen, and especially as these AI systems become more powerful, right? This is going to become quite like a talking point. In fact, if you may want to watch this Netflix movie that's just come out called Control, where an AI is pretty much like taking control of somebody's life because of the amount of data that it's collected, and personally identifiable information more so. So I think for highly sensitive industries like healthcare or financial services, we should definitely have some monetization for people submitting their data, but then also give them a verifiable way to run it through privacy AI. And this adds a nice touch, I think.
Yeah, awesome. Any final thoughts, everybody, before we move to our next topic?
I would just make one general comment, and specifically, I would think for something like ZkAGI, as ZK proof technology becomes more prevalent, this is going to allow the AI models to, verify the accuracy of computations and data without revealing the actual data. So that's going to play a big role in ensuring like fairness and integrity and privacy and so forth in AI models. So, this would give the models a way to be proving that they were trained on legitimate data sets without having to expose the data sets themselves. So when it comes into things like you had just mentioned, perhaps medical data and records and things like that, I think that would be certainly a really good fit in the future for something like ZK proofs.
Yeah, this segues perfectly into our next topic, which all these things are so interwoven together. It's like it's the same thing in my head. The next subject concerns privacy and secure AI training. So, like, obviously, privacy is a big thing, and that's the whole reason why zero knowledge proofs has blown up. So, like, I want to turn to Aten at ZkAGI. So, your upcoming integration with Autonomous is going to revolve around privacy preserving AI training, which we all agree on the panel is important, and Todd just touched on that. Can you maybe explain or touch on like how is this integration of our distributed storage network with your ZK proof-based system? How's that going to like help ensure secure private AI model training at scale? Like, is it scalable? What thoughts come to mind when I pose that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've orchestrated is a very practical system, because if I were to, like just go with the textbook fashion and do like true ZKML kind of innovation, it would take 5 days for you to get the output back. Not 5 days, but at least like 5 times more than, centralized AI can give you. And then you won't be using ZkAGI. So what we've instead done, to bring you to ZkAGI is orchestrated this mechanism where, yes, we're generating zero knowledge proofs on the input and output, right? That's flowing through the AI model. But we've also married that to confidential container technology. So at this point, for large loads, what's going to happen is, your input gets kind of like wrapped into a proof, and then it arrives at the doorstep of the AI model, and then the AI model actually is receiving a proof that, hey, the data I received is not tampered. Here's the proof for that. But it's also like unencrypting parts of the unsensitive parts of the like inputs that are being sent to it. It's actually processing it inside a confidential container, so the host is not able to peek inside and see what's like running inside the AI model. But then the AI model like is processing it. It's giving out an output. The output is sent to the user in an encrypted fashion, and parallelly a proof is also sent to him saying, the right model processed it. It didn't damage the data, and the host could not see, the data. So this is what we're doing. And the thing is, like, we could involve something like fully homomorphic encryption for large language models, but then again, it's the problem comes with it. It takes too much time, and like we don't have those kinds of chips like widely available. Like on this planet, it's not just ZkAGI, like nobody has it, not even OpenAI. So the reality of the situation is we use like hybrid FHE. We don't use like full like full throttle FHE. Like that kind of it's able to preserve the sensitive parts of the data, but you're still able to get the output fast. And essentially with I think autonomous, the collaboration revolves around actually storing the AI models. And I think if I'm not mistaken, like some of the inferences are stored through the autonomous network, if I'm not mistaken, and some of the fine-tuning data is stored through the autonomous network. And all of this, of course, will be done with some level of encryption and good security standards. So yeah, this is what we're building.
Awesome. I'll open it up. Matt, Shiva, Todd, curious if you guys have any thoughts around this. Matt, go ahead.
Definitely happy to jump in here. Yeah, when I think about privacy and all of these components, I like to step back to the end user and the experience that they can have, or the better life they can have from this stuff. And I think Atin pointed out a really great example, which is healthcare. I'm excited about a future world where all of my medical data can be in a place that I can access that's private. My Apple Watch data can be there. All of that can be integrated. And we've seen how impressive models can be at identifying things in your health, right? But it doesn't have access to the data today. And so the privacy component excites me because I live in a world where all my data can be in a place. It can be continuously injected into a model. And if, I've got a week of weird Apple Watch stuff going on, and, I've got my recent healthcare data, like there is a world where my care and ability to live can be dramatically improved by having better privacy and interconnected systems. And so I see what ZkAGI and other teams are doing as like a critical step for us as humans to leverage this information, right? Like AI is only going to be more and more prevalent in our lives. And what really excites me is improving my life, being less worried, not worrying about going to a doctor, like understanding that, I've had some weird heart rate things or something, and it's okay. Or, imagine having it be like, oh, you should be exercising more. Like there's just such an exciting future that we can all have when the privacy is there, because we know HIPAA and all these other things are really important in healthcare. So, I just step back to the consumer experience again. And I think we're so fortunate to kind of be at the cusp of this and like beginning to experience it. And I think more and more people will begin to understand that the privacy and the experiences that they have, like while it's using AI, it actually like gives you the ability to be more human. And that's what I love about our space. That's what gets me up every day. That's why I'm not a tech nerd, but I'm out here trying to understand ZK and FHE and all this stuff. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Cool. I know we want to turn to user auth and ownership at some point, but any other final thoughts? Any other burning comments before we move on?
Yeah, just one more thing. So, like another advantage that privacy gives you is protecting your alpha. And let's say you have a AI algorithm that does trading for you. You don't want your adversary to know, and that's not just restricted to trading. That's with anything in life where you have a strategic edge. You need like an assistant that can help you, but not give it away to your adversary, and that's why you need privacy AI.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah, I mean, all these subjects, again, as I just mentioned earlier, are all interwoven with each other. And one of the biggest things that came up last week in Salt Lake City was this idea of like agents having identity, and this is something that has been talked about a lot. And people on a panel were arguing or debating rather about, well, if we create this AGI and we put it on chain and it has no identity and there's no ownership and it's just doing things, then like who is responsible for that? So I kind of want to turn it to public AI because this is more relevant. Like I think public AI that you've been exploring the integration of our auto ID system, like how are you seeing identification potentially enhancing like user auth and ownership within your platform, and particularly for like managing and verifying data contribution, not necessarily for agentics, but just for managing and verifying data?
Sure. Very interesting points, I think, which came out of the conference. I mean, as you mentioned, that there are some very fundamental questions which still have to be answered. That hey, that you create this kind of a sentiment and put it onto the blockchain, like who is potentially responsible for the actions that are taken. So I think a lot during the last event. So I was at Token, and there were a lot of conferences and firesides being talked about. Uh, just how regulatory systems have to kind of be up into the picture as well, and kind of to keep up with the industry, because the way things are moving in terms of just the sheer amount of alpha being pumped into the industry by different VCs, etc., and the technology and the infrastructure, the way it's building, I think just what we saw in Web3 and with cryptos in general, which was a regulatory system kind of always lag behind. I think this is a time where they really have to pull up the socks, because AI is not just blockchain related. It's affecting the Web2 space in general every day, and they're already like it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So I think from the regulatory aspect, some things will definitely turn up. But what we have seen in the past, that specifically around EU, etc., the way how AI is trying to be contained, that it towards the end of the day, as Aten mentioned, that there are lots of great cases such as healthcare or finance, where your data and your privacy can actually help you out only when you consent to giving it out for either monetization or let's just say any added benefits in your life, such as these medical records, which help you out to sustain and live a better life towards the end of it. So uh, those are the multiple things. But how we look at security and privacy is we definitely are trying to collaborate with more teams out there, which specifically look into privacy and security in general, considering the sheer amount of people that we deal with on our platform. So as I mentioned, we have over 500,000 users onto the platform. So privacy beyond a certain scale becomes a really big issue, and data security and integrity in terms of fairness. Where do we store this? Where are the data hubs based out of, and like how transparent we are in the early days of what we're trying to build completely defines of what we will end up building. So what we're trying to do with autonomous as well is, as you mentioned, like trying to integrate the auto ID system with our proprietary BFT consensus algorithm. So the idea is that we're constantly exploring and trying to think of ways in which we can leverage all the different projects which are specifically building onto these things, and just directly integrating into us. Because towards the end of the day, even though we don't deal with building such infrastructures ourselves, but because of the sheer amount of data and volume that we deal with, and the kind of business that we are into, which is essentially data labeling and large amount of user base, so it's super important and imperative for us to make sure security and privacy is at the helm of anything that we do.
Of course, yeah. I mean, as we all know in the space, legislation is always super far behind, and it can be frustrating to watch because we're all decentralization maxis. Steve Jobs always said, or Fit was quoted as saying, like the computer is like a bicycle for the mind. And I don't know what AI is, but it might be like a rocket ship or some sort of hyper fast UFO. What other thoughts come to mind, guys, when we talk about user auth and ownership in the space? Any other thoughts on this topic?
I can just talk a little bit more generally for people that may not know what we're talking about with auto ID.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned before, we're going to be launching our consensus chain in a few weeks so that farmers can come on the network, begin contributing storage, and this will bootstrap the network. The next phase of this is going to be in Q1 of next year, where we're going to launch our execution environment, which we refer to as domains. So we think of these as enshrined execution environments, similar to like a layer 2 on Ethereum, where you can run your own execution environment depending on what your needs are. And one of these domains that we'll be standing up is going to be called Auto ID, and it is going to be dedicated to this system of providing unique cryptographic identification to things like AI agents. And we think of these things as being very futuristic. Do I have an agent yet, let alone does it need to have an ID to talk to somebody else's agent? The answer is likely no. But I think we all agree that these things are coming. So we're looking ahead to try to figure out ways, and I think that's true for everyone on this call, to try to innovate so that as we get closer to that time, we're all ready. And, we're hopeful that Auto ID is going to play a big part in that conversation for individual identification, which can therefore prove ownership and help with agent interactions.
Absolutely. And thanks for the additional context, Todd. I really appreciate you breaking down auto ID and how it's going to be a domain. Yeah, I mean, at the conference last week, there were some people that were just, water cooler banter, just talking about stuff. And they were like, like I've been using these proto agents and now I'm doing 500 transactions a day as opposed to like 5 or 10. Like we're really seeing that like as this scales up, it's not inconceivable that things will move from being like simple arbitrage bots or MEV bots and the things that people have been using in the space to things that are much more elaborate, these fully what they call mass or multi-agentic systems that are being used, where you've got like one primary agent model and then it's like your dad and it's like telling you and your siblings what to do. And it's interesting watching this evolve. Any other thoughts before we move on?
I'm happy to jump in here really quickly. I think the authentication component is like one of the hardest and stickiest, I think, today, especially in a future state where, like Chris, you just described, there's robust agentic systems that are just doing things. And it's not just like a simple task. It's like a whole bunch of complex actions tied together. And I look at it like I step back simply and say, okay, we've got Sam Altman, this really brilliant dude who helped build ChatGPT. Well, what else did he do? He went and created WorldCoin, which is like a proof of humanity component. And so if the guy who is, one of our founding fathers in AI, if you will, thinks that we need proof of humanity for authentication, then I think the rest of us could assume that we do. And how that gets solved in a world, I have no idea. Those are technical things beyond me. The iris globe concept is crazy to me. But, I think it's going to be essential for us to figure this out. And, I think you pointed out governments aren't going to be the ones that do it, unfortunately, for better or for worse. And so I'm hopeful that there are enough philanthropic, positive, human-focused individuals in our space that we can orient on the right behaviors versus the wrong behaviors. But yeah, it's a really sticky, tricky problem that I'm ill-equipped to talk about, but I'm excited to watch smarter people than me attempt to solve.
Yeah, I mean, WorldCoin comes up all the time, and I think at Autonomous we had talked about this a lot, and there's really kind of a couple notions for the whole like universal basic income UBI notion. Like with WorldCoin, it was like get an identifier, and then we're just going to give you UBI because you're going to be worthless here pretty soon. Like you're not like the cost of intelligence every year will drastically drop to a point where you, like many people, will no longer have jobs. And that is a potential possibility. I mean, every single day we're seeing more and more articles on post scarcity, post labor economics. These are real things that people are starting to talk about. And I always think about like P-Doom. What's my probability of the AI apocalypse? I don't know. Everybody has their number. So yeah, really interesting. Any other thoughts before we move on? No? Okay. Let's talk about the future, about critical next steps for you guys. Like, I'd like to talk about like the next year, what each project is doing respectively. So like kind of looking ahead, where do you guys see things going in the next year with your projects respectively and the space in general? I'll turn it over to Attend first.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the next most practical step for us is our TGE, which should be coming soon. And that's going to be a big event. And once we kind of unleash our token, then we're opening up a whole economy around AI. And with our big focus on partnerships, there's going to be a lot of cross pollination with different ecosystems, such as, of course, with autonomous, and hopefully, like we further talks with Masa and PublicAI as well. And that's one of the things. And in that spirit, I think now that we've figured out our base infrastructure and like it's working well, we're looking at end user agents, to deploy into the market that appeal to the everyday crypto degen or the TradFi bro who's just coming into crypto. So that's the user segment we're focusing on at the moment. But then we also have like a developer segment, and we have MOUs with over 100,000 developer base across continents. So we want to activate that. We want more people building with us than OpenAI, more people building with AI 3.0, and pursuing this opportunity that we have with our partners. So that's going to be a big focus for us. Technology is for the most part solved. Of course, there's always scope for improvement, but bringing the ecosystem alive, and I'm quite excited about that too.
Awesome. Totally agree. Shiva, I'll turn it to you. What are you excited about in the next year with your project, with how, this AI3 ecosystem is going to be evolving? Curious for your thoughts.
Absolutely. Firstly, I would like to thank you for being such a great host and having this. I think one of the best parts about any of these discussions is when you actually talk about what you're looking forward to, which usually happens towards the end of the conversation, and that truly excites me because it's whatever that you've been working for all this while. And all the best attend to you with your TGE. So that's exactly what we have in our heads as well. So the most crucial part is to have TGE. So right now we are in a very safe and structured position where we're planning to make sure how do we scale from the current 500,000 users to the next million. I think that's always going to be at the back of the head, that how do we scale from both ends, because we are a B2C as well as a B2B player if you look at it in terms of a business. So it's important for us to increase the user base and the validators that we get onto the platform. But at the same time, it's important for us to have people who are ready to buy all of this data, and in ways we can kind of use all of that alpha to reward and build more infrastructure within ourselves. So the whole idea is how do we move on to the next million. That's where we're looking at in terms of user base. Apart from that, it's always healthy to have great partnerships and collaboration. So we're always looking out for that. So it's always I think crucial to have open discussions and just like these conversations between people like us, which are always super informative and give reference to what's happening. Because as I said, towards the end of the day, it is a very very tiny industry in a lot of ways, that we keep coming across a lot of players who are building alongside us, and it's just about how much can you help the entire ecosystem out, because these are the baby steps and the crucial times which are going to define the next 5-10 years in AI 3.0. So it's always exciting to be a part of it in whatever capacity that I can be personally. But yeah, the whole idea is how can we do more collaborations and increase our user base. That's what we're looking at, and super excited for whatever is to happen in terms of the market in general.
Awesome. Yeah, it feels like everything's accelerating, and it feels like this is a watershed moment. Knock on wood, but it feels like the information economy it's finally going to work for everyone because we've figured out a lot of aspects of Web3, and now we just got to get the UI looking better for regular people, because I know that we're in the space and we get used to it and we're like, oh yeah, I have a MetaMask wallet, a Phantom wallet, like it's totally normal to us, but give it to your grandma. And I mean, I do know a couple of grandmothers, to be fair, that have a MetaMask wallet. I'm kidding. Matt, curious, the next year, how do you see things? How do you see AI 3.0? Tell us more about what's happening at Masa over the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And great conversation today. I've really enjoyed it. Ata and Shiva, as you guys go through your TGEs, happy to touch base on our learnings as we went through it. I think our team did it really well, fortunately, and conditions are improving for all of us in terms of market sentiment. So really excited about the next couple of months in general. I think first and foremost, really simply for us at Masa, we're laser focused on what builder pain points are today and how, using our data and our protocol, we can solve those pain points. So if it's a different platform you need data access to, or whatever else, like, we just want to hear from builders and collaborate and go deep into the weeds. And that's really where we're focused first and foremost. But like, what that really means for us is we just announced our incentivized testnet, which is, kind of that's what we've been working across this entire year to get to with the TGE, with our BitTensor subnet going live, all of those things. Now we have this beautiful marketplace in a sense where workers can contribute their compute and their logins and their credentials to scrape data, and businesses and consumers and all the people on the other side can request information. And so we're really focused on improving kind of that dynamic, getting to the point where you can come onto Masa, or you could connect to our API and say, hey, I want the last 100 days worth of tweets about autonomous, right? And then be able to gather all that information, or do multi-platform all at once. So we're really focused on just like simplifying the user experience, both for builders and developers. And then ultimately, like, really looking for deeper collaborations. Our goal is to decentralize our entire stack, right? So we've got the collection component decentralized. Now we're working with Autonomous to do the storage component, and working on the compute and all these other things. And so that's really where we're focused. And I'll just wrap up with, at the end of the day, like, we're just trying to create slightly better human experiences where nobody knows they're using blockchain, right? That's the dream. Grandma uses it, right? Grandma doesn't care about blockchain or ZK or FHE or whatever token you have. Grandma just cares that she can send her grandson $100 for his birthday, right? And we could do that better with crypto, but we need to get there. And I think all these baby steps and the things we're all working on are going to help us get there over the next few years. So ultimately, super bullish. AI, I think, is definitely going to drive this next upturn. I'm excited for all of us as we continue to build and collaborate and just support people that are here and trying to, push us towards a better future.
Yeah. AI increasing accessibility is major. And I mean, Barachain was one idea. What about Grandma Chain? So easy your grandma can use it. This I don't think that's a project, but it's possible.
Todd, you better be careful. Chris might go launch Grandma Chain.
Grandma Chain.
I like that.
You like that idea? Well, Todd, I'll turn to you. Where do you see things heading? There's so many things happening at Autonomous right now, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, maybe we need a grandma chain domain or something like that. That would be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, we are really, as I said before, laser focused on getting our consensus chain launched, which will be happening toward the end of this month. After that, again, is going to come the execution environments. Initially, we'll have an EVM domain, we'll have our auto ID domain, and then others will come up as well. As you know, our entire platform is based on proofs of archival storage, so it's very conducive to storing data. So the next big thing for us that we're going to go down is the scalability road. We've already got a scalability and sharding roadmap that we're kind of putting together to be able to scale transaction speed even faster and do processing in parallel for data availability and data access layer optimization, targeting some really high speeds. We really feel that the future is going to be about storage and computation being the next big trend. And being that with our network, we've decoupled the two between the consensus layer and the execution layer as two totally separate components that work together. We think that we're going to be very well positioned going into the future where storage and compute is necessary. I was just reading something on X earlier in the week, someone from Mega Eats stating that they got a request from one of the founders at Solana saying that, you know, we need to do some biometric data processing for AI for, you know, this fitness tracking system, but we can't do the compute on our side. We're not able to do it. Can we offload that someplace? So, you know, here's a chain like Solana, super fast transaction speeds, proof of history, you know, really good for just pure speed, but the compute's not there. And that's where we really feel like we're going to have an edge by being able to offer both of those into one native combined offering. And we're really looking forward to working with all of our partners, especially those on this call. I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you, Chris, for hosting.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, modern problems require modern solutions. It's possible there's a bunker filled with a bunch of H100s that we don't have access to, but I think time will tell, right? So thanks so much, Todd, for that. And thanks everybody for joining. I really feel like we're all in on this together, and we're all working on projects that are really complementary and really contributing to the broader Web3 ecosystem, AI ecosystem, deAI, AI 3.0, whatever you want to call it. So thank you guys for your insights and contributions. We've really explored some of these technical and ethical challenges, even of building these fair, decentralized AI systems that utilize Web3 that we know and love. And it's clear these partnerships and innovations are going to be leading the way in these new developments. So I really hope for our listeners that these conversations that we've had have sparked some new ideas and potential collaborations even, who knows? So please stay tuned for more discussions in our AI 3.0 ecosystem. And thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much.